All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kate Matthews-Bray, and I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement here at NJIT. Thank you for joining us for Session 3 of Jumpstart Your 2025 Job Search, a 5-part series designed exclusively for NJIT alumni. I'm excited to welcome you to this evening's session, which focuses on Getting Interviews 2.0, Tap into the Hidden Job Market. Before we begin, I want to jump in and share some details of how tonight's going to work. When you entered, your microphones are muted, and we kindly ask that you please keep your microphones muted throughout the presentation. We want this session to be interactive, and there will be times where you'll have a chance to ask questions or share comments, and we'll let you know when those times happen. You're welcome to either keep your video on or off, whatever you're most comfortable with. Please feel free throughout the session to type questions or comments in the chat box. We'll take some time at the end of the session to answer them. And lastly, this session will be recorded and available on demand. Okay, let's get started. In this session, you will learn how to build and use your network effectively, how to get results by contacting people directly, an approach to answering ads that will increase your response rate, what you should be doing on LinkedIn right now to get interviews. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Robert Hellman. Rob Hellman, president of Hellman Career Consultant, is a seasoned career and executive coach who has guided over 1,000 individuals and numerous organizations toward success. Rob has delivered hundreds of workshops and keynote speeches to diverse audiences, including top business schools like Columbia and Cornell. A contributor to Forbes and other major media outlets, he has authored multiple books on career development and leadership. With over 20 years of experience at companies like American Express and JP Morgan Chase, Rob also teaches career management at NYU and actively supports nonprofits. He holds a BS in economics and math from Binghamton University and an MBA in finance from Fordham University. So with that being said, I am pleased to turn it over to Rob Hellman.
Thanks, Kate. Hi, everybody. Good to talk with you all and share these insights. So before we dive into the content, I just want to mention that you can get the slides at any time. You'll get the recording, from Kate. If you want to get the slides like right after this meeting, because we're going to have a lot of examples and case studies in here, just go to you could just type this in your browser, tinyurl.com/NJIT 31925. You could do that at any time. Okay, so just to put this in context, this may look familiar to some of you who've been on previous workshops, that I kind of use a 6-part approach to landing the job you want, right? I call it HCC's 6 Steps to Success, Hellman Career Consulting's. And we're right here, right? Step 4, getting interviews, okay? We already covered planning and organizing, creating your marketing materials in the prior sessions. Now, the underlying theme here, and it's so true with everything we're going to be talking about, is being the best consultative salesperson in the world for yourself. You want to be great at sales. Now, it's different than used car sales, which is like transactional, and it's just right on the moment. There's no relationship, really. You want to build relationships with people. And that's what I mean by consultative sale. But a lot of what I'm going to be sharing with you is an extension of what the best salespeople in the world, like business to business salespeople in the world, do. Like anybody who does sales, B2B sales, this will resonate with them right away, because it's that kind of thing. A lot of what we're going to be talking about. Okay. So just keep that in mind. And to sort of segue into that a bit more, like, you don't want this to be you. You don't want to be just out there in the middle of the ocean, floating around in the currents, hoping they're going to take the currents will take you to your island of your dreams. You want to take a much more active approach. You want to find that island of your dreams and then swim to it, or even better, rocket to it. Like, you want to take charge of your career. And that's what we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about today. This active approach to your search. So keeping that in mind, if you look at these 4 ways of getting interviews, there's job postings, search firms, cold contact, like cold outreach, and networking, getting introductions, right? These first 2 are passive. They're like, you're just waiting for the posting to show up. You're waiting for the search firm to call. And that's it. Like you got to sort of set it and forget it. Just hope somebody calls, you know? And usually about, I'd say 20% of interviews are gotten this way. Networking and cold contact account for roughly 80% of interviews. So you should definitely use all four ways. You want to get set up for the postings, get set up for the search firms, but then you want to move into the more active approaches. Okay. And I want to start though by talking about how to make the most of postings and search firms. Then we're going to move to the latter to these active approaches for the rest of the webinar. And I'll talk till about 20 after 7. And then we'll take questions after that. But, you know, just keep your questions in mind and I'll take them then. Um, okay, so starting with postings, like, and search firms too, like the challenge is that these postings, these search firms, they get hundreds or thousands of responses. I just had a client recently tell me that she was talking with the recruiter. This is a C-suite role. So usually there's less competition for those C-suite roles. She said they got over 1,000 applicants for the C-suite role. The HR person said they that many, you know. So you can have even more, right? So that means that your background has to look almost identical to the requirements. If they're missing, if it says, you know, in the posting must have 10 years of experience in X, and you have 8 years of experience, I wouldn't bother applying. It doesn't mean you shouldn't go for it. Absolutely go for it. I'm going to talk about that more in a second. But you're probably not going to get through the applicant tracking system or, you know, the computer that's doing the screening or the low-level HR person who's doing the screening who doesn't really know the job. So you really want to don't waste your time. That's what I'm saying, right? But there is something you can do, which is way better even than applying that we're going to talk about. Okay. But keep that in mind. But if you do match closely, yeah, I'd apply. Okay. Uh, but yeah, again, these are passive methods of searching. You got to wait for something to show up. The hiring manager's not doing the initial screening. It's often a computer. And the other thing that's sort of not great is that you have to give some kind of salary requirements, which is like a screening question. It's way better. And this is another topic really that we're going to probably talk about, I think in the next webinar, to push off any conversations about salary, if at all possible, until after you get the offer. That's when you have the most leverage. So right away they're asking you for salary, you can get in trouble right there. So these are all the downsides. Doesn't mean you shouldn't reach out to search firms, you shouldn't reach out to postings, but it's really like just set up search alerts for your postings. If you don't know what I mean, like for example, on LinkedIn, you can set up search alerts. You can, you know, create a search. You know, I'll just show you really quick. I'm gonna just do it. I think it would be worth it for you all to see this. Like if you're not doing this already, what I would do is I would go to the jobs icon on LinkedIn, right? And you could do this on Indeed. You can do this on others. There are lots of search boards, right, out there. Go to jobs. You set up a search, you know, type in whatever you want to type in, you know, data analyst or data scientist or business analyst or whatever, you know, do like, right now you can pick, oh, you can pick a, hold on a minute, I got to log off of this. But anyway, you can pick a city, state, or zip code, and then you can refine it more with all filters. And once you're happy, set search alert to on. Turn the search alert on. That means you're going to get postings sent to your email inbox so you don't have to constantly go check LinkedIn to see the postings. So that's kind of what I mean by set it and forget it. Just get it set up, get a good search going that has a lot of postings you're interested in. Then, you know, do the search alert and just forget about it and move on to the next thing. Okay. So that's how I would think about postings in terms of applying. But the thing you want to do is take a two-step approach. You know, apply to the job posting, assuming you match closely enough. And then, and I would always do this, find the hiring manager or their boss and email them directly. And you can usually find them using LinkedIn searches. Um, Sometimes you can do it through the website, depends on how senior you are, like how senior the person is. If they would even be on the website or the type of company it is. Sometimes nonprofits will show a lot more. But anyway, you usually 80% of the time you can find this person or most likely who this person is, and then email them directly. And I want to show you example. And you know, I'm just going to show you how to find these people too, because I think it would help you. And I'm just going to have to log in for a second. Sorry. Hold on one second. Let me just do this because I think it's worthwhile. Sorry about that. Okay. So what you'd want to do is something like this, right? You go to search box, press enter, just press enter. Now you're like looking for the person you might report to, right? And what you do is you go to companies and you type in the name of the company. So you find the company. Say you were trying to get a job at Google, right? And there was a posting for Google. You click on Google. They're going to be like a ton of employees. You see this like 10,000 plus employees. That's a link. Click on that link. Okay. And then go to all filters. Okay. All filters. And you can narrow this down a lot. Okay. And the way you narrow it down is in the title field. You might say something like, if it's like, you might say director of business analysis, like think about what titles might be a level above yours. Sometimes you can figure it out from the posting. You can play around with this. You can use Boolean search strings, ands, ors, nots, parentheses, quotes. You can also add another search string here to eliminate people. It's like a filter, like up here. Anyway, that's how I would go about just very quickly, you know, finding people on LinkedIn. So now what though you found them, what you want to do is email them. Now, don't message them on LinkedIn, even though you found them on LinkedIn. The response rate is so much lower on LinkedIn. You'll get a much higher response rate on email. So what I want to do is show you an example of an email that a client wrote, and I want you to tell me what you think of it. And really, it's really a before and an after. Okay, so I want you to tell me what you think of this before email. So this is like, so what my client did, you know, tried to do was email the person they thought they would work for, you know, in the for the posting that was looking for a senior business and economics analyst. Okay, so just why don't you take a look at it, read through it, and I'd love for you to take like a minute and then give me your comments, what you think about it in the chat. I want to see what you come up with. Okay, so I'm going to just let you read it for a minute. Take another 20 seconds to read it and give me your thoughts in the chat. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you like some things, not like other things? Okay, start putting your comments in. Let's see what all right, I'm checking out the comments. I'm starting to get some. Heavy emphasis on I and my. Doesn't relate to anything to the company. Okay, interesting. Good. Boring and too long. They're just restating the resume. I like some of it, but too long for a cold contact, especially if they don't already know you, or if I don't already know you. If this person is asking about a specific role, they shouldn't be running to see if they could use someone. Get a different email address, too long. I agree with the get a different email address. I'll say that right off the top, right? Uh, where's the dragon slaying story? Interesting. Okay. So here's I want to give you my thoughts on I really like your comments. I think you're right on target. Like when I read this, this is what my reaction is. That's a lot of words. That's number one. It's very dense. And, am I going to want to read all this, in a long email? Probably not, and sort of related to that is there is a lot of repetition. He talks about quantitative analysis here. He says it up here. He says it down here. He says stata and R down here. He says stata and R here. Does he need to keep repeating these things over and over and over again? And then there's some extraneous information that I think is less, needed, you know? Uh, and as someone wrote, like, he's restating his resume, right? This should be like a teaser, and attach the resume, right? The other thing I'll just say is, as someone mentioned, the email address, put your name in there and not Hotmail. That's like 1990s, right? Sound like your current Gmail, Outlook, something more current, right? Hello isn't going to get your email read. You want to have a subject line that so they don't think it's spam. Okay? Let's look at the after email. And I want to see what you think of the after email, and I want you to give me your thoughts. Just read it again. Will be quicker because it's a lot shorter. And type it in the chat. Type your thoughts in the chat. Sorry. Okay, I'm looking at your comments. Okay, organized. Still missing dragging, slaying story. Okay. Like the first bullet, add percent. There's a legitimate call to action in the last sentence. Any other thoughts? I like this better and draws your attention to the achievements. All right, yeah, I think bullet points and bolding stands out. Start by complimenting them about their recent accomplishment. Okay. All right. Like your thoughts. I'm going to give you my thoughts just to add to this. And so first of all, it's just the word I think of is scannable, much more scannable to the human eye. They could zoom through this. Nobody has time. Everything is fast. So super short paragraphs, bullets, bolding, underlining. You could use subheadings, anything to make it easily scannable to the human eye. That's how you want to think about these things. Okay, number one. Number two, obviously the subject line is something that they might care. My client wrote it in a way, so they might say, "Oh yeah, I cover emerging markets. We need help with emerging markets. My firm, they know your firm, which is my firm. So I'm going to open the email, right? Better email address. Something about sometimes you can't do this, right? But in this case, my client Armando was able to mention what they have in common. Here's what they don't do, and he didn't do this in the other email either. But it's important what he doesn't do, and which will help you. He doesn't mention the posting. I don't want you to mention the posting, even if you are reaching out to them because of the posting, because if they know what their needs are. They know they need a business analyst with expertise in quantity. They know that. So by mentioning the posting, all it's going to do is get you sent to HR. They might say, well, if he saw the posting, why is he bothering me? I shouldn't buck the bureaucracy. You know, I should let him just go through the process. Or they might not think of you for other things. Like if you don't mention the posting, they might actually be open to having you, talking to you about other roles that you didn't see. So you don't need to mention it. Leave it out. My client left it out. This works well for clients. This is an email that got a response. Like we had to see you. The other reason this works, right, is like it just speaks to what they need. Gets right to the point. You know, this is like this pitch, like this whole thing is like a pitch. You're gonna see this over and over again in the emails we're looking for, right? Like and like with like a little bit of a hook, like well-known company one and a well-known company two. Like these are, you know, think big companies, whatever, right? Like the best Amazon and Google or something like that, right? Like something that'll grab their attention, you know? They use words like you and your, like my particular focus has been China and Brazil, where I understand you are seeking to grow your presence. So it's not just about me. It's about like me in the context of what you need, right? I understand your company culture reflects these same values. Again, you, right? Your, like your company, like that's helpful. Okay. The last thing I want to mention is the 20 minutes. Like everybody's got 20 minutes somewhere, right? End with an ask, make it specific, ask for 20 minutes. Okay. This worked. Clients do this all the time. You know, you'll get like if you do this the right way, if you write it the right way, and so it's going to resonate, you know, the words are the right words and phrases, you'll get like a 50% response rate from something like this. And I would do this whether you apply through the posting or not. If you're interested in the role, but you don't perfectly match up, reach out directly. And let me give you, I want to tell you how powerful this is. I had a client who was going for a divisional chief financial officer role at a huge global media company. And he applied. He saw the posting and he applied. And he said, you know what? I'm going to figure out who I'd work for, and then I'm going to email them directly. So he figured out it would be the global CFO that he'd work for. Emailed the global CFO with an email similar to this, you know, with his pitch that reflected the posting and all that. And the global CFO, he said, look, we should talk. You know, it could be mutually beneficial. Global CFO invited him in for a meeting, turned into an interview, turned into a bunch of interviews, turned into an offer. While he was negotiating the offer that he ultimately accepted, he received an email from Human Resources saying, hello, we've received your application. Unfortunately, we have nothing that matches up with your qualifications. We will be in touch with you if something opens up. In other words, like one side doesn't know what the other side's doing. You see what I mean? Like it's just like it's crazy, like these kinds of things. So you definitely want to take this extra step. Okay. And what you can do, this is just another example. We don't have to go through it now. It's very similar to the one we just went through. When you get the slides, you'll be able to look at them. Very, very similar approach here. Um, I just want to sum it up a little bit, and we're going to talk about some other emails too. When there is no posting, when you're not sure, when you're trying to maybe just get an informational meeting. We'll talk about those. But for any type of email you're sending out related to your job search, by the second, you want to think about these things before you send it out. Do they understand what I want and why I'm emailing them by the second paragraph? Do I have a compelling pitch that's going to resonate with that target audience? Is there a way I can offer to help them? Sometimes right? Like I understand, I have particular experience with China and Brazil where I understand you're seeking to grow your presence. But beyond that, it's things like, if you're asking somebody for a favor, can you also return the favor? You'll see more about examples of this in a couple of minutes. Did I use words like you and your, right? So it's not just me. Sometimes you don't need to attach your resume. If you know there's an opening, I would always attach it. But if you're going for an informational meeting, maybe leave the resume off because you want to take the pressure off. You want to they may not realize how great you'd be for a role they have open until they talk with you. Just get the meeting, right? And maybe just instead of the resume, attach your LinkedIn profile if it's filled out properly. It's more low key, less high pressure. Um, Am I showing appreciation if I'm asking for a favor? Like, I'd greatly appreciate I'd be grateful for. Sometimes you don't need to do that. Like when you know there's an opening and they have a need, it's not about showing appreciation. It's about like, hey, let's talk. So in this case, with the other examples, my clients didn't need to do that. But you want to think about, should I do this? Right? Is my email as concise and scannable as possible? So just think about these questions. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about search firms, just very quickly. Search firms, their job and the way you want to use them is to get you the interview, to give you feedback, although I wouldn't count their feedback as definitive as the last word. You really want to hear any feedback ultimately from the people who you're interviewing with, okay? They may want it and sometimes rewrite your resume. Just let them do what they want, even if you don't agree. They sometimes have their own sort of branding or something like that, right? Or approach, like they want to be consistent with every resume they send. What you don't want them to do, and I see this all the time with clients, is they filter your communications with those interviewing you. When you are working with search firms and they get you an interview, you have the relationship with those people that you're interviewing with now. It doesn't, you should get their email addresses, follow up with a great, what I call impact email, okay? Where you're influencing the decision making, keep in touch with them. I don't want you to keep the search firm out of the loop. I want you to respect them and make them feel respected, but do not feel they got to filter everything. It's what hurts you and it ultimately hurts them. Okay. Contingency, there's two types of firms. There's contingency firms where they're just submitting your resume and hoping that the hiring manager is going to want to interview you, and they maybe have this hiring manager may be working with other search firms, whatever. Then there's retained search firms where the company has already paid the search firm, and the search firm's like acting like their agent, like they're like the first level of sort of screening before HR. Contingency firms, I want to talk about them. There are a lot of bad ones out there. Okay. And they can hurt your career. There are a lot of mediocre ones and there's some good ones. Only work with the good ones. Here are some ways you can tell. They ask for your permission before sending a resume to a specific company. That is a must. They are top tier, like well known, like you might have heard of like Russell Reynolds or Korn Ferry. I'll give you an idea about how to find those, but you could just say, what are the top search firms in the country? You'll see the list, but I can show you another way too to find that list. They were recommended. They want to talk to you first before connecting on LinkedIn, meaning what you don't want is they send you an invite to connect on LinkedIn as their first outreach without an explanation. That's a bad search firm. That's not good. Who knows who they are and why they're doing this? I would never have anything to do with that. If they ever send your resume out without telling you, run away from them. That could hurt you if you don't have control over that. And they start fishing, like a fishing expedition. Like, so who have you been interviewing with? And they try to why are they doing that? They're not doing that for you. They're doing that to see if they should be submitting other resumes to compete with you. Those are all signs of a bad search firm. All right, so just keep that in mind. Okay, I want to talk a little bit more. So we covered some of the highlights for search firms and postings. I want to talk about the active approach now, the networking and the cold outreach, right? It's all about the hidden job market, which is the relationship-driven market for unadvertised jobs. It gets you the interview as soon as there's an opening. So the goal here, I just want to, and you might have seen this before, some of you, if you've been to my earlier presentation. The goal, you want to keep in mind that you want to have at least 6 meetings or interviews in the works at any given time with people 1 or 2 levels above you who can hire you, right? So that means like when I'm working with clients, I'm super happy as a coach. When I say to my client, we have a touch base meeting and I say, how's it going? And my client says something like, well, I have 3 meetings on the calendar. 2 of them are informational meetings. 1 of them's an interview, all with people in a position to hire me. And then I have 3 more meetings I'm actively following up on, 2 interviews that may go to a next round, and another's an informational meeting that might turn into an interview. That makes me really happy because 5 of those 6 things are going to fall away through no fault of your own. So you have to have a lot of things in the works to be able to get a really good offer. So that's the goal here. So I want you to think about this when you write these emails. It's not always about just interviews. It's about meetings that can ultimately lead to interviews. Okay? So another thing I want you to think about when you reach out to people, you want to make a decision about the tone you're going to use, right? If you're going for a job, if you're saying, I can help you, you can be more assertive. Like the emails we just looked at are more assertive. It's like, hey, we should talk. It could be mutually beneficial. Do you have 20 minutes available? If it's informational, you might have a more appreciative tone. Okay? Let's look at some more examples. Here's an example. I think this is a little too long, but it worked. Okay? And let's talk about why it worked, okay? This is a client who was looking to make a transition from financial services to higher education, doing like business analysis, right? And database marketing, analytics, and things like that. And so what my client did is she said, I figured out what you could do to help university, which was different than what you could do to help like, JP Morgan Chase, you know. So she figured that out, and she did that through having a couple of really purely informational conversations to learn how her skill set could be useful to a university, right? Then she started reaching out to the people. She had no idea if there was an opening. She just reached out to the people she thought might be able to hire her, or maybe the boss of those people. In this case, John was like the number two executive, like the executive vice president at a Ivy League university. Um, and so she just reached out to John, but after reading his bio on Ivy's website, right? And she's right away starting to pitch herself. I have experience because she saw that he's part of what he does is fundraising and development. And so she said, I have experience that can support these efforts, right? And then she gives a little background, right? I'm looking to make a geographic move. I'd greatly appreciate, this is where the greatly appreciate comes in, right? Showing it's a little bit different than when you know there's an opening. 20 minutes of your time to gain your insight on how my experience might be a fit in a university setting. I will not be expecting any openings. So that's important. Like, take the pressure off, just get the meeting. Given my many years of experience with data mining and data mart design, perhaps I could also share with you some knowledge that you would find useful for Ivy's fundraising efforts. This is where it's like mutually beneficial. Can you say anything here that they might be interested in, and like how you can help them? Sometimes you can't say something like this, but you could say, if I can introduce you to people in my extensive LinkedIn network, I'd be happy to do so. You could say something like that, maybe, right? This pitch, you're going to see this in every email. Every time you're introducing yourself or reintroducing yourself, you want a resonant pitch, okay? Turning raw data into actionable knowledge, actual insights, okay? And you're going to get from, you can see this is very familiar, right, already after the prior emails. My LinkedIn profile, no resume, because she doesn't want to put that kind of pressure on John, like, oh, she's looking for a job. Forget it. We don't have anything. Anyway, so, something personal, I noticed you made the transition from corporate to university. I'm looking to make, would you have a time for a meeting? So, she got the meeting, right? Which ultimately led to a referral and then another meeting and then an interview. So that's how it works. Okay. Another example, and you can read this on your own. Okay. Very, very similar. In this case, she said, I saw you gave this talk, right? Your CFA talk last September. She resonated. She commented on the CFA talk, wrote to Eleanor, 20 minutes of your time. I'd greatly appreciate it. Same stuff, pitch down here, right? It's all there, all the same thing. We don't have to go through it in word by word. This one is slightly different because this is about getting a referral from somebody. So maybe you have a mutual connection. You can see that on LinkedIn. If you have mutual connections at a company you want to work at or in an industry, and for people who could potentially hire you. So in this case, my client saw that Helen Smith she was directly connected to Helen Smith on LinkedIn, and Helen Smith was in turn directly connected to Susan. So Susan was my client's second degree LinkedIn connection, right? So my client asked Helen, listen, I see you're connected to Susan. I was thinking of reaching out to her. Could I say I was referred by you? And Helen said, sure, you can do that. So she did that. She put referred by Helen Smith, HR people analytics, right? And she copied Helen, Otherwise, it's the exact same email. It's just the intro is a little bit different. Same thing. You want to try to personalize it if you can. Say what you want by the second paragraph, 20 minutes of your time, right? Have a great pitch, just LinkedIn, no resume, 20 minutes, okay? Oh, by the way, for people who came late, if you want to get the slides, you want to see these examples, you can enter this URL anytime, and you'll just fill out a very short form. and you'll get the slides. And it's really an optional form. And you'll get taken to a page where you can download the slides. So, and you'll get the recording from Kate, possibly, like, I guess a little bit later. So anyway, just so you know. Okay, so I'm sorry. Okay, so I want to talk to you a little bit more about, so that's how you might reach out on an individual basis, like leveraging your network, right? Referred by, like in this case, right? There's another way to kind of think when you think about leveraging your network, like what you want to do is get the word out in a big way. And one way to do that is to email a whole bunch of people at the same time. You know, BCC a whole bunch of people in a mass email, uh, where you include really, I'm going to show you an example in a second, your job target, your pitch, ask for help, and like list the firms at the bottom. Say you're not going to be asking for a job again. Take the pressure off, make it easy for them to want to connect you. And you're going to ask about you're learning, really interested about how the company's organized and where you'd be a fit. Okay. Now, what the people who might be in an email like this are not the ones who you might work for, right? These are the ones maybe who you don't know as well. You don't want to put them on the spot. But this is about, like I talked about this in the first webinar, planning and organizing your job search campaign, that you want to have a very broad, wide network. The power of weak ties is very impressive. Like there's a whole science around weak ties. If any of you heard that webinar, you'll know what I'm talking about. That like the people you least expect are the ones that come through. So those people that you least expect may be the ones that get this blind copied email, right? People you haven't worked with in 15 years, people that your neighbor, your dentist, family and friends, things like that. Okay. So here's an example, and it's very similar to the emails we've already looked at. It's just tweaked a little bit. Like now the subject line's your help requested. Instead of like, hi Susan or dear Susan, it's like, hi all. As some of you may know, I'm beginning my search. So this is a little bit different, right? I'm starting to look around. I'm looking for a 10-minute conversation with a contact in any one of the financial institutions listed below. So why is this important? Do you see that there's a list? It's important because when they see the names, it might jog their memory. And they might be like, oh, that one, I know somebody there. If you just say, Citi or Citibank or whatever, they might not, if you just say financial services, they might not think of it. If you say Citi, they might think, oh, I know somebody in Citi. Okay. It really helps to name some of the companies. So anyway, LinkedIn, no resume, right? Then the pitch. I've listed these institutions, and you want this to be great because they might forward this email to somebody. Okay. And something like this, you send this out, half the people aren't going to respond. Then another 25% or so are going to say, look, great to hear from you. I wish you a lot of luck with your search. I don't know of anybody that I can introduce you to, but I'll keep you in mind. Those remaining 25 people, 25%, right? Will say, maybe you should reach out to this, maybe you should reach out to that. In this case, my client sent this out. She ended up getting 4 interviews out of it. She sends like 100 people. Okay? So this is another thing you might do. And you could easily repurpose this and make this to just one person. You could just change this a little bit. You could say, your help requested, hi Kate, hope you're well. Hope the year is starting off well for you. I'm reaching out because I'm beginning my search, right? Like you could just write this to one person too. It's the same thing. Okay. Now, I want to just throw out another concept because people don't think this way, and I really want you to think this way. If you're turned down for the job, bring them into your network. Like this is what it's all about, the active approach, right? Meaning you're always looking for the next opportunity, for opportunities to talk to somebody. This is like where you're thinking like a salesperson. So what I mean by that is if you get rejected, maybe like I've had clients like, I met with 7 people. It was like 7 hours of interviews. And then I was like the number 2. They didn't pick me. Those people know you now. They liked you. You were like number 2, right? Or number top 3, right? You went through a couple of rounds. they clearly liked you, but they just ended up picking someone else. It happens, right? It's nothing against you, right? So you should leverage those relationships you've now built in those interviews. I would reach out to every one of the people that you've interviewed with that you felt there was a personal connection, like you guys got along well enough, right? They liked you, and email them and say, I heard you're going in a different direction. Be super gracious. I heard you're going in a different direction. I wish you much success with whoever you decide to hire. While of course, I'm disappointed. I totally understand. And I wish you much success. I hope everything works out. And I hope we can keep in touch. I'll send you an invite to connect on LinkedIn. Also, I'm as I am still in a job search, I'd be grateful for any feedback that you can provide me that would help me with my search, given that you've now met me. And would you be available for a 10-minute conversation? You can email that, and you can also try calling them when they're more likely to pick up, like before 9 or after 5, before they're in meetings. So I really want to try to get this feedback, and you really want to try to get them in your network. And this is how clients get referrals. It happens all the time. I had a client who was had an interview in a Fortune 100 company. He got rejected. He did this with the person he got rejected by. She said, I'm happy to, you know what, I'm going to send you, he asked, who else should I talk to? He got that feedback. And he said, is there anyone else I should talk to in your organization? She forwarded him to somebody else, had an interview there. He got rejected, did the same thing, got feedback, asked, is there anyone else I should speak to? That person forwarded him to somebody else. The third time around, he got an offer. I mean, that's not uncommon. Okay. Another thing I just want you to keep in mind is quality is like associations can be really, really great in terms of jump-starting the active approach to your search. Because if you can find an association that represents what you do, it could be, business. There's like these data science associations. There's, like I was on the board of the Association for Talent Development, and also on the board for the Marketing Executives Networking Group. Like I see how these people use these associations who come in. Like these members, a lot of times they're even making career changes. And so their resumes aren't that great because they're not, but what they do is they get involved in the associations. They help run a committee or run a committee and get on the board. They get to meet all these people in the associations. And a lot of those people might be in a position to hire them or refer them. And that's how they get interviews. They get interviews left and right. It can really be helpful to you. So a quality association is that there are their members are the right people. People may be in a position to hire you, right? And you can learn. Also, you can stay cutting edge, right? That's a quality association, right? That's quality, but you also want to think about quantity. Like if it's a very small association, it's not going to be as helpful as a lot of people, right? So you want to balance quality and quantity in terms of the right association. Any association, half the people are going to be unemployed, but I want the other half to be people you really want to network with. Okay, and I have if you click on my resources tab of my website, you'll see that I have a list of associations. This is not a comprehensive list. This is just a list of associations either I've personally had experience with or my clients have told me about that have helped them. So you can maybe somewhere you can to start, and it's definitely not comprehensive. Okay, so and this is exactly what I was talking about. Get involved to build a high quality network. Help run a committee, offer to support senior officers of the association, get on the board. I had a client who had a very challenging resume. She had job hopped a lot. And now she was seeking to make an industry change into the energy sector. She was like in another sector previously. And she didn't know anybody in the energy sector. She had sort of a problematic resume. She joined this energy association, and she got to know like the president of the association. She offered to write blog posts. She offered to help do some work on the budget. She helped the president and the board members, and she became known. And that's how she got her job. And that's a common story. Okay. So Okay, this is important. When you're thinking about your network, don't make this super common mistake. Send me your resume and I'll forward it on. That's something that, your network might say because they don't know how else to help you. And it's very generous of them. They want to help you. So they say, send me your resume and I'll forward it on. But I can tell you that almost never works because first they may forget to forward it on. They may only forward it on to one person, not 5 people. When they forward it on, they don't say the right things. The person doesn't need that piece of paper right then. They don't need the resume right then. And you're just a piece of paper to them. You're not a human being, So it just goes nowhere. What you need to do is have a relationship with a hiring manager. So if um, one of your network contacts says, look, why don't you send me your resume? I'd love to help you. Send me your resume and I'll send it around. You say thank you. That's very nice of you. I appreciate it. But it would both make it easier for you and help me more if I could maybe reach out directly to these contacts that you have and say I was referred by you because that way you don't have to do it, number one. And number two, I want to get a meeting with them, even if there's nothing open now. If they just see the resume, they can say, well, we're not hiring. I want to get that meeting regardless because I'm thinking about long term. I want to build a relationship for the long term. So you should try that. That's ask if okay to email with referred by in the subject line. Ask that, right? Now your network contact might say, I better check with them. They might say fine, right? Or they might say, you know what? I better check with them first. If they say I better check with them first, then you say, why don't I send you a forward-friendly email, right? A forward-friendly email that you could forward on to them to make it easier for you and to also make it clear why it would be mutually beneficial to meet. And your network contact's going to love that. So then you create this fantastic forward-friendly email. Very simple. All you need to do is say, you know, hi X, thanks again for offering to forward my information to Y. As discussed, I've shared my background below as well as why I think a meeting could be mutually beneficial. And then you give your pitch. And then you send that to your contact. They will forward it on. You might ask your contact if how would they feel copying you. And that's how you do it. Okay. It's much more powerful than if they just send your resume out. Okay. To send this forward friendly email. Okay. This is very important. I want to end on this. Okay. Or almost end on it. This idea of an informational meeting, okay? Because I'm telling you to get meetings or interviews, right? You really want to do these informational meetings the right way. So say you're meeting with somebody who you think you might be able to work for, or maybe it's the boss of someone you might be able to work for. This is a structure, but there's no opening. You just got this informational meeting. There's no obvious opening, okay? This is what you do. You start, say small talk for a minute or whatever. Remind them why you're there. Like they may forget because there's no meeting. It's like maybe they're thinking they're doing you a favor. Okay. I appreciate you taking the meeting because I'm really excited to be talking with you about my, job search in particular, my, job target, which is X, whatever your job target is, right? I'm really looking forward to getting your insights. So just remind them of that and then say, why don't I take a minute to remind you of my background or share my background. And then I'd love to ask you some questions. And they'll say, great. This 1 minute pitch is so important. Really, if you do the pitches in these emails that I've been showing you the right way, you could basically take it right out of that, right? You can just basically say it in a conversational way, what you wrote in the email, the 1 minute pitch. Then what you want to do is now that you gave this great pitch. We're very clear about what you want. Now you want to be like a detective. You want to be like Sherlock Holmes, asking questions to see how you could help them first, right? See if you can help them. Like, can I help you? If not you, well, how about other people in the company, the department? Like, really try to figure it out. Okay. Now, if they say, they may start getting interested in you. They might say, like, because they've been impressed with your pitch, you're having a good conversation around the questions you're asking. They might say, like, wow, you're great. We may need someone like you in a month or two. Let's keep in touch. Or Well, you're great. Too bad we didn't talk with you 6 months ago when we needed somebody like you. Then you pivot to number 5. Depending on their interest in you working for them. In this case, it still should be music to your ears if they say, wow, you're great. Too bad we didn't talk with you 6 months ago. Because now you pivot, you say, you show them your job search personal marketing plan. And I'm going to show you what that might look like. Make something that makes it easy for them to help you. You basically pivot away from working for them and pivot to who do they know? Who can they introduce you to? Okay? Because let me just say this, this is the overarching goal. Your mission in life, and I probably should have put this on the slide. Your mission in life in the informational meeting is to get another meeting. Like that is what you are completely focused on, getting another meeting, either with them or one of their colleagues in the same company or someone at another organization. That is your goal. So you're constantly trying to figure out how can I get another meeting? So you start with maybe working for them, then you pivot if that's not working out to who do they know? Okay. And of course, if it's just informational, you thank them for their time, follow up with a thank you note. Now, I'll just give you a quick example of how important this pitch is in these informational meetings. So I had a client, she was interviewing for like a pretty senior role. Sorry, let me stand back. She was not interviewing. She didn't know if there was any opening. She got an introduction to the CEO of this mid-sized company. And it was just an informational meeting. There was no posting. And she could tell when she got to the meeting, because the CEO agreed to take the meeting, that the CEO was like just doing their mutual connection a favor. And like he was half paying attention, you know? He looked like he was like half asleep almost, or just totally distracted. And he could just, and then she could tell. And then she said, why don't I just take a minute to give you my pitch? She gave this fantastic pitch, and he started perking up and he was like, wow. At the end of the pitch, he said, wow, you're the real deal. And he got really interested in her. Then they had this fantastic conversation. Ultimately, she didn't know there was even an opening. This turned into an interview, and she ultimately got an offer from them, right? That's how important this pitch is. Okay, make sure it's good. This is an example of a job search marketing plan you might want to put together. It makes it easy for your network to help you. You've got like, here's what I'm looking for. That's up here. This is like an example from a deputy general counsel. This is an example I had. So here's the objective, what I'm looking for. Here's more specifically the target market, target companies, like types of industries, size, right? Make it easy for them to see what you're looking for. Here's what makes me different or better than the competition. You can pull this from your summary section of your resume. Here's that list of companies we were talking about before, right? That will jog their memory. Make it easy for them to help you. You can, in the middle of a meeting, if you're doing a Zoom meeting, you can, if it's suddenly not looking like they'd be able to hire you, or there's not any openings, you might say, you know what, I just emailed you my job search marketing plan. I'd love for you to take a look at it. I'd love to get your perspective on my search. And let them look at it and say, oh, AllianceBernstein, that's a good one. Oh, I was thinking of reaching out to them. Should I use your name? Right? Do it like that. Okay, that's what you want to do. The last thing I want to say, and I've mentioned this before, in especially the planning and organizing webinar, but I just want to remind you to keep in touch with your network. Okay, it's very important. It's not just you reach out once or you have one informational meeting and then you never talk to them again. Okay, it's the keeping in touch is like so important because you got to stay on their radar because they forget. And like a month later, they have an opening. They forgot about that they met with you a month ago, and you need to send them an hello and update email or something like that. Okay, so that's that. Here's again the link for the slides: tinyurl.com, NJIT 31925, my website, my email address, and I'd love to take some questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. I got a question in the chat and it said, Rob mentioned email them instead of messaging them on LinkedIn. How does he suggest getting their email? A lot of LinkedIn profiles don't have emails, just
Yeah.
LinkedIn profile links.
It's a really good question. So you can almost always get an email address. Okay, I'm going to give you some thoughts about how to do it. First of all, you could just kind of do creative Google searching. That takes two minutes just to see if you can figure it out. Okay. Second thing, that doesn't work most of the, it'll work maybe like a third or a quarter of the time. The next thing you can do is I'm going to go to um, my website. Hold on. Hold on a second. You can go to my website and you can click the resources tab of my website. You see resources up here? And then utilities for career management, right down here. See it? Click it, this. And these first 7 links can help you find email addresses. The first 2 for free. The others are paid, but they're not expensive and they give you free lookups. So you can go from like one to the other, just get free lookups as long as you sign up for free before you have to pay anything. So you can get like, just from going for these 5, you can get like, like 35 or 40 lookups, right, of email addresses. This one, Hunter.io, these free ones, they're like 50-50. They take longer. It's not always as accurate. You should try it. But it's just if you don't want to be bothered, these are going to work. Like maybe start with Rocket Reach. These will work. These are, maybe 50%, maybe more than 50-50. Maybe 2/3 of the time they'll be helpful to you, but it takes a little longer. Okay. So, okay, next question.
Great, thanks, Rob. Folks, if you want to either type in the chat or unmute yourself, whatever you're more comfortable with, we're happy to answer some questions. Josephine, I see your hand is raised. Feel free to unmute or you can type in the chat and I'll read it to Rob.
Yeah, thank you. Very interesting. I'm in a field that has been described as having what's called an inverted job market, which is a sort of a technical way of saying that there aren't that many people hiring. There are a lot of different economic factors that are. So, do you have any special tips for I mean, these are all good strategies to use in this type of market, but I'm wondering if you have any additional suggestions because, some of us are looking in what are called inverted job markets.
Yeah, sure. Look, listen, I appreciate the question. And so inverted job market's a challenging job market, a terrible job market, use whatever word you want to say, use, right? It's so important that you take advantage of these active approaches to getting interviews that I talked about, So I just want to say that number one. Number two, you might need to expand your geography. I don't know if that's an option for you, or maybe the positions to maybe if it's such a tight market for the roles you're interested in. And the third thing I would just say is in terms of like leveraging some of the ideas in this presentation, I would really use LinkedIn. I hope you're on LinkedIn. You have a good presence. Hopefully, you know most of the people in your network and you have a quality network. Because you can really use LinkedIn to get a lot of ideas about people you can reach out to send these kinds of emails. Like I would be doing if it were me in an inverted, tough, hard job market, whatever you call it, I would be going to LinkedIn. For sure, that would be part of my thing. You remember I was showing you this search, right? This is at a company, right? But forget about that for a second. I might just go home. I might just say, click in the search box again, right? We just press enter here. Instead of clicking on companies, I go right to all filters, right? Before it was a specific company. Now I go to all filters. You might say like, who do I know or who does my network know? Do first and second degree connections, right? Do industry instead of company, I'll just pick one, technology, information, and media, whatever, right? And then do some kind of, job title search, like you might director, if you want, maybe a little more senior people, director or VP or chief or head, something like that, right? I'm probably missing other words, right? You could do and, I told you about the Boolean searches, ands, ors, nots, quotes, parentheses, all that, right? And maybe what do you want to do in these technology, information, and media? I don't know what your role is, right? Maybe then there's an and. You might even do it like this. You might do parentheses like this. And I'm just putting in like, I could be anything, and marketing, right? Or whatever you do, like, so I have no idea what's going to come up. I'm just making this up, right? So head of marketing, director, growth marketing at Spotify, these are those media tech companies, right? Director, if that's VP product marketing, Evolution IQ, like these are the right people. And you might narrow down the results further, right? That's a lot of results. Maybe you throw in a couple other keywords up here to narrow down the results. That's what I would be doing for sure. Okay?
Great. Thanks, Rob. We have
Yep.
one more question.
Sure.
The big roadblock right now is for folks requiring visa sponsorship in the US. Any thoughts on how to navigate this?
The only thing I can tell you is the companies that go for the companies don't really try to focus your energy on the companies that have a lot of experience with this. And those are two types of companies, right? Global companies have a lot of experience, right? If they have presence in other countries, and companies that just hire a lot, do a lot of cross-border hiring, a lot of overseas hiring, right? A lot of that's in the tech sector. Those companies are just naturally, they just tend to have a lot more experience with that. It'll be easier for you to get visa sponsorship if you focus on those types of companies. But that's really the best I can say about that. The most I can say about that.
Great. Thanks, Rob. All
Yep.
right. So we are at our time. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you found this session helpful, and we look forward to seeing you at our next session on Wednesday, April 16th at 6:30. Again, I'm going to send this recording to you by early next week. And a special thanks to Rob for sharing his expertise with us. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Yeah, everybody. Thanks. Thanks, Kate.